sa lalawigan ng Batangas. At yun nga mababanggit natin dyan, si former Governor Vilma Santos Recto, andyan din si Jay Ilaga na incumbent Vice Mayor ng Mataas na Kahoy dito sa Batangas. Andyan din si Walter Ozaita na Barangay Captain sa San Jose, Batangas. At si Mike Rivera na isang negosyante, kilalang negosyante dito. At syempre, nanunukulan din sa bayan ng Padre Garcia. At so far, hati pa yung narinig ko gusto nila, na wala tayong solid winner dahil nga sa dami ng potential na maging gobernador nga dito sa Batangas. Talagang hati-hati pa yung opinion ng mga Batanggenyo. Kung sa Vice Governor naman ako, mainit-init na labanan ko din yung sa Vice Governor dahil si incumbent Governor Dodo Mandanas ang kakalabanin ng anak ni Vilma Santos Recto na si Luis Manzano. So yun, hati din ang naging pulso ng bayan natin dyan, lalo ng mga Batanggenyo. Wala silang complete winner kung tatanungin natin sila. So ayun, so far, yung political landscape dito po dito.
Okay, so yan yung aabangan natin, ano? But for now, thank you very much for that update. That was mobile journalist Amy Atienza reporting to us live from Batangas.
Malapit yun sa airbase.
Yes.
Sabi ni Manny Mogs. Fernando Airbase.
Sa likod ng gilid ng airbase. Pero part ng Lipa City.
Sa Batangas.
Pero eto, Sir Manny, you have another celebrity joining the political arena. Anak naman ngayon ni Vilma na si Lucky. Ano ba ang voter behavior ngayon? Are we inclined to...
Hindi ko alam, pero kasi iba yung power ng ni Vilma Santos sa Batangas. Baka mahatak na si Lucky, no? Pero palagay ko manalo artista si Lito Lapid at si Bong Revilla lang.
Sa Senado.
Oo, they're comfortably in the middle position sa surveys.
Pero si
Yung iba,
Ipe, mahirap
Nandun din siya sa naglalaban for the last two
Yes,
spots.
pero mahirap.
It's an interesting point kasi nga we were saying that Gen Z and millennials now form the majority of voters. 42 million, over 42
Yes.
million, right? So
62% of the voters.
And the tendency is to go for the alternative names. So if that's the case, why are we still seeing a lot of celebrities, a lot of influencers?
Hindi lang sa
Jumping
sa
in.
national, pati sa local, daming celebrities.
Yun na nga eh.
Oo. Sa probinsya, sa Manila. Yung mga
Sa San Juan,
artista.
puro basketball players naman.
Oh, yes. Oo. Maraming mga celebrity na nasa local. Siguro, wala na silang karir sa sports at sa pagiging
Harsh.
artista.
Ang harsh naman ni Manny Mogs. So on that note, let's bring in our next set of guests. We're joined by Professor Guido David of Octa Research Group and Dr. Jan Robert Go, Associate Professor of Political Science at UP Diliman, and also the President of the Philippine Political Science Association. Good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for being with us.
Good evening.
Good evening, yes.
Prof. Guido, let's start with you. Last survey, mo, we were still seeing a lot of changes in the names, lalo na towards the bottom 5 or 6 names.
Yeah,
No?
last survey ng Octa Research conducted.
I'm talking about the senatorial pre-election
right,
survey.
sa
Yeah.
senatorial pre-election survey conducted nung April 20 to 24. But to be fair, we also look at surveys of other major firms. Kasi medyo iba-iba yung results
Yun na nga
na nakikita natin. And some people are asking, how come, some of the numbers or the names look
Ibang-iba
different?
sometimes.
Yeah, actually, they're not different. If you look at the top 20, it's the same names. The problem kasi is the separation, the gap between number 10, kunyari, or number 9, and number 20 is only 6 to 7%. With the margin of error of 3%, it's like they're all bunched up, parang dikit-dikit sila. Kumaga sa pila, tabi-tabi na sila halos eh. And with that close of an election, then anyone among those from number 10 to 20 has a viable chance of making it in the top 20. Of course, narinig kasi Tito Manny na making a fearless forecast already.
Can you react to that? Do you agree? I mean, the issue being, just to recap, Senator Amy Marcos brought up Abalos during her ambush interview today lang. And I was saying na medyo nagulat ako doon because she's essentially accusing him of electoral fraud. Sabi niya lahat ng lumalabas daw puro Abalos yung name kahit na hindi naman yun yung binoto. So that took me by surprise and I was asking him what the point of that was. What was she signaling here? Do you agree? What did you think?
Well, I only look at the data, so I don't know what the point of that was. I haven't even heard of that, interview, and maybe Dr. Go can comment on that. Binabato ko sa kanya. But regarding that, I mean, Secretary Abalos does have a legitimate chance to make it in the Magic 12 because he's number 15 or 16. So he's within striking distance and within that 6% spread that we talked about. So if he makes it, it's not necessarily anomalous from a perspective of a data scientist. But if there are other factors that are questionable, then I leave it to the COMELEC to flesh out what's happening. But regarding the forecast ni Tito Manny, I think that's fair. I think, but people like si Willie Revillame, I think he has a decent chance to make it. Even Bam Aquino, kunyari, he's actually number 13 to 14, even in the average survey results. So Kiko Pangilinan, a little lower. So there are names that are, have a decent shot of making it. So it depends now on the ground machinery, on the local endorsements, religious endorsements. Those will be the factors that will make the difference between a candidate winning and not winning.
Okay, so let's have Professor Go react to that instead. What did you think of it?
The statement. Well, I think at this point we know, well, based on the surveys, know that she is on the latter end, and the chances are, well, I don't know if is it right to say the chances are a bit slim or it's tight.
It's tight.
It's tight.
You could say it's tight.
Yeah, so it's tight, and if it could, the attempt is probably to create doubts on the election process, no, na posible magkaroon ng dayaan, no, and as if that can be raised as early as now, and therefore without the transmissions happening yet, then it could already give an idea to the public that there is a possible cheating in this election. I'm not saying there will be, but if that is the intent of the statement, then that could be something that people will also cling on to.
It's a bit worrisome. Because sabi nga ni Manny, in every election, may cheating allegations, parang part and parcel na of
Before
our
the elections,
electoral
may
process.
cheating na.
Whether or not true, of course,
Yeah, of course,
somebody
of course.
will allege na, dinaya ko, ganun.
Yeah, I think in the Philippines it's just like that, right? It's either you win the elections or you have been cheated. So you just choose which ball game you play.
I think it also happened in the U.S. when
Yeah,
Donald Trump lost. He didn't lose, he was cheated.
He was cheated. So,
I think to refresh your minds, during one elections, naglaban si Miguel Zubiri at si Coco Pimentel.
Right.
And si Migs ang nanalo. Pero it turned out na cheating allegations. And so nag-resign si Migs, kaya nakapasok si Coco. So that could possibly happen.
Yung ganung
Anong
scenario.
year to?
Can you,
This was, because in the, 19th Congress, pareho sila.
07?
okay.
19th Congress, they were both there.
Oh.
Meron din competition over Senate presidency,
Yes.
diba? So parang na-reenact yun.
Okay, well, but leading up to May 12, right, there were several election issues. You have the impeachment, the arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte. You have the Marcos versus Marcos feud. But I wanted to ask Dr. Go, what do you think was the defining narrative of this particular midterm elections?
Well, as it is apparent in how we focus the reporting, for example, I think it's the Marcos Duterte feud. And it's been exacerbated by those instances or issues that you mentioned. For example, the impeachment of Sara Duterte, the arrest of Rodrigo Duterte. So these are just contributing factors to the larger narrative of the feud between the Marcoses and the Dutertes. So, and I think that has been the tone of this election, to a certain extent silencing other candidates or other voices in the electoral contest. No? For example, you have a very, very minority like the Makabayan, you have the Bam Aquino, Kiko Pangilinan, and all of these sets of supposedly other alternative candidates, no, which we haven't really heard about, no, because the focus has been largely on the Alianza versus the PDP Laban. Of course, to which extent is PDP Laban able to counter really the candidates of the administration is another thing. But yeah, it has dominated the airwaves, no, and has been dominating the social media discussions as well, right?
But is it really the defining narrative? Because if we ask the public, I mean, I
Yeah.
agree that's what we hear in the signals. But you know, in our own survey, we asked what are the election concerns, or what are their concerns that they will base their votes on. And one of the leading factors there or concerns are economy, inflation, healthcare, poverty, food security.
Even the West Philippine Sea.
West Philippine Sea had 18%. So even that, I mean, not an immediate concern or not an urgent concern, but it's actually a concern. So is it the case that the public really just wants leaders or to elect leaders who will look after these concerns that immediately affect them? Because, you know, the dispute between the two camps, you know, does it really affect them immediately? Unless, you know, and we know also from our survey that there's a large chunk of Philippine voters who identify as independent. So they don't really identify necessarily as being Marcos or Duterte. They're somewhere in the middle. They're something like swing voters who can vote one way or the other. But their main concern is, you know, getting food on the table, making sure that they have a job, well-paying job, so that they can afford services and get access to healthcare. I mean, I'm not saying that that's that's just the survey result, but whether or not it's the, you know, it's the feud that's the main issue. I mean, maybe it's the narrative that we're hearing, especially maybe from the politicians themselves, from the candidates, but maybe the public sees it differently. So that's what, you know, that's a point that I think should be looked into.
So there's a disconnect, right, in terms of what the voters are saying in surveys when asked about which issues they want to prioritize versus the narratives that are being amplified. Earlier, we had political analysts Ronald Llamas and Alan Herman saying that when voters, their behavior kasi when choosing candidates, lalo na nationally daw, ang hinahanap daw kasi nila distraction. Pero pag locally, solution. Would you agree with that, Dr. Go, na pag sa national scale, distraction eh. Parang they're not really focused on the platform, solutions.
You can argue that, especially that I think our national politics is heavily focused on the drama that is behind the stories of every politician. For example, we focus much on the feud between the Marcos and the other Marcos. Diba? Kung ano yung statements that they throw against each other and the implications or what we infer from those statements. But at the local level, because local governments are the closer governments to the people, so this is the level where they are looking for immediate solutions to their daily problems. So kumbaga, kung boboto ka, ang boto mo para sa local officials ay yung mga officials na makapagbibigay sa iyo ng serbisyo, edukasyon, kalusugan, social welfare, no, infrastructure, kumpara sa national level. Of course, you also demand all of these things from your possible senators, but medyo may detachment eh. Malayo kasi siya dun sa everyday experiences ng mga mamamayan.
We brought back yung chart that we were talking about earlier, voters' preferences, kasi Professor Guido was talking about it. Ito na nga yung sinasabi niyo, Prof, no? 93% on job security, on job opportunities, tapos food security, health, labor rights, poverty, and of course inflation. Lahat po yan, of course, economic issues, what we call gut issues. But we were saying also earlier, so, you know, in general, we haven't heard that many candidates tackle these issues head on. Or if they did, ako personally, what I heard mostly were motherhood statements, right? I haven't heard much of by way of actual concrete solutions. Okay, for instance, job opportunities. What is your plan to create more jobs, for instance? But it comes back to your point now, to the point na medyo may disconnect.
I agree na parang may disconnect. And just to, as a disclaimer, Sec Ronald Llamas and Alan Herman are, I mean, we actually have a program together. So, but I'm going to say
alas.
something. Yes, but I'm going to say something that they might not agree with what they said. So, at my own risk na babanatan nila ako sa pagbalik namin sa program. But in terms of distraction, maybe there's some truth to it. There's some distraction. The national candidates are, you know, just a distraction. But there's also a point of view, a perspective that this is how Filipinos think or see these candidates. For example, sa survey namin, and in other surveys, si Senator Bongo has been leading. And his numbers are rather, you know, kind of inexplicable in the sense that the Duterte vote is not that large, because otherwise we would be seeing more candidates than just two, as Tito Manny said, na dalawa lang yung na-foresee niya na papasok sa Magic 12. So that means that the Duterte factor is not as high as what Senator Bongo is getting. So why is Senator Bongo leading the surveys? Because he's actually appealing to cross demographics, so different regional demographics. And the reason, at least from what I'm hearing from people on the ground, is that they say that he's responsible for the Malasakit Center, so he's helping with the public. And whether that's real or not, that's the perception of the people. So, in other words, they are still voting along these lines, but based on their perception of these candidates, now they can help with certain programs that will affect them, like Malasakit, or let's say the Tulfo brothers, they're figuring high sa surveys, but maybe because there's crime and fighting illegal drugs, and the public perceives them as people who can help with these issues. Now, I'm sure there are other candidates who can probably also help about agriculture or job security, but the problem is some of these other candidates may not be as well known. So, problem naman nila. I mean, they don't have the awareness where a lot of people know you. So first step is to get the awareness, and then second step is does the public perceive you as being able to help them with these issues that they're concerned with?
It is 7 o'clock at top of the hour, and polls are officially closed for the 2025 midterm elections. This is nationwide polls have all closed except for the areas na i-extend nila, no? Which Chairman Garcia just announced a few hours ago. May mga areas, may mga precincts, but there are only a few. Mga, I think 15 that will be, whose polling hours will be extended. Pero for now, polls around the nation, precincts around the nation have closed for voting for the 2025 national elections, and we are expecting results, the bulk of the results, between 8:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. Of course, we will continue our rolling coverage then, so you have to stay with us.
Although voting will continue for those people who are
In the area.
Within the area.
Within the 30 meters yata.
Yeah,
Oo,
30
sabi
meters.
ko.
Okay, so now let's continue our discussion. Earlier, we were talking about the value of endorsements, the power of endorsements. Dr. Go, I wanted to ask about the power of Leni Robredo. You have the former vice president endorsing Manny Pacquiao, Ben-Hur Abalos, and Sir Manny was saying the value of endorsements is sa bailiwick. But magta-translate po ba yun, yung kanyang endorsement sa Bicol region in this midterm elections? Does she still hold that power to endorse candidates and actually convert them into votes?
Makikita mo kasi sa endorsement ni Lenny, merong, it seems, no, this is just my interpretation, two types of endorsement. A more explicit, strong endorsement and an endorsement. Okay? How do we see that? For example, meron siyang mas explicit, stronger endorsement, even posing for pictures, for videos, for campaign materials for two candidates, right? Which he did not do for these two other candidates that you mentioned, no? Manny Pacquiao and Abalos. So doon mo makikita na she is endorsing them, but not strongly endorsing them. So dito mo makikita rin yung differentiation na she's calling upon her followers, but there are core followers, like core pink people, that will vote for the first two, but not vote for the other two. But there might be weak pink people, no, that she can tap onto who may also want to include these other candidates. And if that is how we would interpret the endorsement of Leni Robredo, she is appealing to different segments of her support. Okay, not necessarily bailiwick. Although I don't know if Professor David would have a more concrete way of looking at this, for example, in terms of Leni's base number, no? In terms of survey, for example, which you have seen in the 2022 presidential election, and would it translate that base vote in this midterm election? And will that also translate to the votes for the candidates she endorsed, the stronger two and the other two? Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually seeing strong numbers, for example, for someone like former Senator Bam Aquino. In our own survey, we saw that his Bicol numbers were strong. Now, whether that's due to the Leni endorsement or his own appeal in that region, you know, it's hard to distinguish that or to separate that. Although, Kiko Pangilinan is also getting good numbers in Bicol, but again, how much of that is from the endorsement of Leni? And unfortunately, we don't have the data now because, we could ask that as a survey question, but now that it's already happened and it's already the election, so it will probably be useless. So what we will see will be the election results. My own sense is that, and this is not scientific, based on some people I talked to, especially from that region, is that people will still vote generally for people that they like, and they won't vote for people that they don't like. But there will still be a segment of the population that can be influenced by endorsements. And my estimate is the strength of the endorsement will be somewhere between maybe 10 to 20% of that region, where these are relatively soft votes that that can be influenced by an endorsement. So there will be a solid part of the population, like in Bicol, who will not be affected by the endorsement, and then there are the soft votes. So that will also go for example, for Central Visayas, where Governor Gwen Garcia endorsed Kiko Pangilinan, for example. So, we'll see if how much that adds to his number. But my own sense is that around 10 to 20% could be soft votes that he might. And if he gets an additional 10 to 10% in a place like Central Visayas, which is vote rich, then that would actually make him a lot more competitive in the Senate race.
Nationally, is there a big undecided base? Parang wala, no? Most people have come into it, feel they're pretty much set on who they're voting for. As you said, a lot of people vote for who they like, do not vote for people they do not like. And nationally, as a nation, it feels like may ano talaga, may red line talaga.
Well, yeah, there's a red line, but between people that they like and they don't like. But there are also people who have not filled up their ballots. In our own surveys, the fill-up rate is only between 5 to 8 names. So they don't fill up 12 names sa survey.
Dumadami yung ganon.
Yeah, so why is that? And another question that we asked some time ago was, when do you decide to choose the candidate? And up to 20%, maybe 20 to 30% of them choose the candidate on the day of the election. So there are soft votes. That's 20% of possible votes who could decide on the day of the election. I think another 10 to 20% decide 1 week before the election. And the surveys are conducted almost 1 month before the election. So that's why there's still some variance here, especially in a tight contest.
Because we also know people who go into the precincts with cheat sheet, yung list nila. I'm not saying cheating. I should probably not use that word.
Kodigo nila.
Pero kodigo, that's it. Thank you, Pao. May
Kodigo.
kodigo pumapasok sa precinct na may
Sample
kodigo.
ballot.
No? Ako, parang may negative connotation na din yung sample ballot.
Well, I heard of that. Some local candidates support certain, national candidates, and then they have these, like maybe código that they supply, and that can help actually because, some of them they come to the precincts and they don't have 12 names on their list. They might have 3 names. They might have 6 names, and if they're thinking of suddenly, because sometimes Filipinos are, just like that, spontaneous. Okay, they might decide to vote for 6 names, but suddenly, okay, I might vote for, these 3 names. These names look familiar or something
okay.
like. So we don't know what's going on in their individual minds when they go to
Maraming
the precinct. So
variables
that's
din.
why there's some level of variance or variability in the election results, and that's why, when we talked about it last week, we said it was too close to call. There are maybe 10 names that could fit in 2 or 3 seats, but these endorsements could be huge because, with the difference of just 2%, 1%, if you have an endorsement that will add 2% or 3% to your national number, that could be the difference between not winning and winning.
Manny, you were saying kanina?
Kasi yung kasama doon sa endorsement, yung behavior ng voters, medyo ang Pilipino is regionalistic. They tend to support candidates
That are from the same region.
from the same region, like Ilocano,
Kapwa Ilocano, kapwa Bisaya.
So, malaking factor yon sa pag in-endorse ka ng isang leader ng Bicol, of course, kung Bicolano ka, he will follow kung sino in-endorse.
What about block voting? Is it still a thing this year? I mean, I know yung last elections, INC,
Command
for instance,
votes.
was what, 2%?
Yung command votes, usually sa mga warlords. No? Yung mga traditional political families, they can dictate their followers na itong boto nyo. Oo.
So, nangyayari pa yan? And secondly, religious-based votes,
I'm
block
not sure,
voting by INC specifically. Alam
Marami
ko
pa rin
po-
humihingi ng endorsement ang INC, no? Maraming politiko.
Yeah, I think there is some value to getting religious endorsements. Although I'm not very much familiar into this particular area. But dun sa sinasabi nating endorsements of warlords, okay, or local politicians in general
So,
terms.
local yan.
Yeah. So, dito mo makikita na ginagapang ng mga senatorial candidates yung local. To a certain extent that they do not really think of the alliances that they have created prior to. Halimbawa, di ba, may alyansa, may PDP laban, and all of these things. But they start to break away because they want to ensure that they will get the seat. Because at the end of the day, they are competing against each other, right? And the more important thing is the more votes they get, the higher chances they win. So, importante para sa kanila yung endorsement ng mga local politicians. Okay? Dito pumapasok yung nabanggit nyo kanina, yung sample ballot. I just want to put that into highlight that when you look at sample ballot, local officials have their own versions, and you see
Sinisingit
names.
silang ibang. Oh.
Well, they can do that. They have been doing that based on my research. But when you look at the names, these are names which are a mix of everything that you do not expect. For example, the names of Kiko and Bam mixing up with Marcoleta, Vic Rodriguez. But it happens at the local level because local politicians have that grasp in their constituency. And if they are able to do that, then they can bring in or carry the votes for these senatorial candidates.
Yung religious black voting, talagang importante yan sa local election. For mayor,
Right.
congressman. Pero sa national, I don't see real value. Kasi there have been experiences in the past, no? In-endorse ng Iglesia ni Cristo si Jinggoy noong 2019. Natalo. Hindi in-endorse si Coco Pimentel. Nanalo. No? So, hit,
Hindi siya
hit or miss.
foolproof.
Hindi talaga siya foolproof. No? Parang lumalabas, parang may myth yung Iglesia ni Cristo endorsement.
Black
No?
voting.
Pero sa local, malaking bagay yan. No? Kasi kung yung member nila, tiga Nueva Ecija, for example, iboboto nila kung sino yung
Pero national is
National.
hindi always,
Oo.
they don't
Tsaka,
always get it right.
ilan lang ba ang member ng iglesia?
Right.
6 million? 68 million tayo eh. So, maliit lang. Lalong-lalo na, maliit yung KOJC. Mapalagay ko, di nakatulong kay Pastor Kibuloy.
Okay, bago lang tayo mag-break, yung on endorsements pa rin, last leg or last month na ng elections, ng campaign, si senatorial candidate Camille Villar, nag-shoot pa sila ng ad ni VP Sara Duterte, Gaano kalaki yung epekto na yon, yung move na yon, yung pagkaka-endorse ni VP Sara? And correct me, Tito Manny, parang last senatorial election, si Mark Villar ay consistently mataas.
Yeah.
Oo.
He was
Pe-
1 or 2,
Oo.
I think, if I recall correctly. No?
Etong elections na to, parang hirap nilang hatakin pataas.
Hindi
Itong
kasi,
si Camille.
hindi kasi kilala si Camille as a national...
Leader.
Okay.
Kasi Mark Villar, yung DPWH eh. So, nasa media, madalas.
Okay.
Si Camille, before running for the Senate, walang paramdam sa Kongreso eh.
Oo.
Yeah, well, to be fair to Congressman Camille Villar, when we first did our surveys last year, mga 1 year before, she was polling like 3%. So, kumbaga, although do sa runway, mahaba naman, she had, a higher, altitude to climb, kumbaga, because she was coming from all the way at 3%. Whereas nung kay Senator Mark Villar, he was actually polling higher already, even at the start. Like he was already maybe top 20. And I think to Tito Manny's point is, yun nga, mas recognized na agad si Mark Villar. And that's why it was easier to bring him from, let's say, kunyari, like starts of 15%, 15 to 40%. Whereas si Camille Villar, you're starting from 3%. But regarding yung endorsement ng Vice President, that's actually a very interesting question kasi we did see some slight dips sa numbers ni Camille Villar. And I'm not talking about just Okta Research. We're talking about, yung aggregate ng surveys because she was figuring a bit higher already sa surveys. And then I think she had, we can't say definitely na this is a causation kasi it could be that other candidates went up slightly, so she dipped. But we did see a slight dip in her numbers. So I'm not saying that the endorsement of the Vice President actually hurt her, but yun nga, I'm just talking about the numbers that it did see a slight dip. But she's still within the top 12, to be fair. So maybe it dipped, but she's still very competitive. But we'll see. Maybe in a few hours we'll see the election results. I'm guessing that the top 6, top 7, top 8 will be fairly easy, and you could already proclaim it. But the rest could be a bit tighter, and it would take a while to decide who would be the winners for the 3 or 4 slots remaining.
All right, so we're just going to pause this conversation real quick. We're going to take a quick break. We've got more Bilang Pilipino updates. When we return, keep it here.
Pilipino special coverage on One News. At this point, data is coming in based on the COMELEC website. Tricky?
Yes, we will actually, in fact, check now on data. Currently, what you're seeing here is the data transmission progress, of course, from the polling precincts. It's none right now. This is at the national level. You can actually check the top provinces later on, and vote-rich provinces, you can actually select them here. Right now, no transmissions happening yet, so that goes as well for the specific locations. Specific locations, the difference between the data earlier was this one, you can actually select the province and go to a specific city. For example, province of Cebu. And if you would like to check on the data transmission progress in the city of Cebu, then you would just select it. You would see the progress right here. Again, currently no transmission data yet. It's 7:25 in the evening. Polling precincts, save for around 15 precincts, have actually already closed.
Okay, so right now we aren't seeing any
Okay.
data yet.
Wala
No
pa.
data yet as of
Wala pang
this point.
pumapasok.
But once it does come in, it will come in batches. So we
Yeah.
will see those numbers. It's not like
It's
when
not
you're...
real time, no?
It will may slight delay, if I understood correctly.
Around 15 minutes
Oo.
delay, yeah.
There's a 15-minute delay, but also it won't be like when you're loading a website tapos mabagal yung buffer. This one will be coming in batches. So we'll see those numbers jump pretty quickly over the course of the evening, which we will be covering live, of course, here on One News.
In fact, earlier, no, yung sa press con ng COMELEC, di ba? Si COMELEC Chairman George Garcia said by before 10 o'clock, most of them will already be posted here. So siguro parang
official results.
telling na yon, very telling na yon. Okay, at this point, I guess we can ask our friends from Meltwater to come in here, right beside me. Strategy lead for Meltwater, Southeast Asia, and Jovic Raimundo. Jovic is over there. Yes. Sir, yes, what was your name again?
Weldon.
Weldon. Yeah, Weldon. Okay, Weldon and Jovic from Meltwater. What exactly is Meltwater for those who aren't familiar?
Sure. Meltwater is essentially the global leader in media intelligence and social listening. So fundamentally, what we do is we take data from our partners such as Meta, TikTok, Reddit, X, formerly Twitter. We take that data and we essentially use large language models and AI to help uncover trends, insight, and narratives in a matter of seconds. So really helpful in a case like trying to understand the national discourse that's happening online.
Okay, so it's trends online and social media, but has nothing, you're not going to be having data on voter behavior.
We won't get voter behavior as in outcomes,
Right.
but we do see what they're saying as a discourse online, right? So, for example, if there are certain policies that they're talking about, certain
Okay.
candidates that they're talking about, we can definitely capture that on publicly available social media messages, and be able to try and aggregate that into insights, right?
Jovic, yeah, would you like to add something?
Yes, actually, I'm Jovic Raimundo, part of the digital insights of MediaQuest. We've been working with Weldon and his team from Meltwater to deliver what we call a social listening dashboard. We'll feature it later because I think currently we're still waiting for the vote count, the transmission. But as Weldon said, it's not going to be the same as a voter survey. It's not a vote count. What will we be counting for Meltwater is number of mentions, number of engagements, number of reach, how popular or how much are our senatorial candidates talked about in the context of these elections. Just to share, as of 6 p.m. Today, we've already seen that the most used and the fastest used word around all of our senatorial candidates is the word vote.
So this is the fastest used word, not necessarily hashtag.
Not necessarily hashtag.
All right.
Vote because it's in the context of vote buying and the voting process that's been happening right now. I believe we've seen reports during our Bilang Pilipino coverage that throughout the day, there have been multiple reports around the nation, cities, regions, and provinces about the problem of vote buying, Comelec is actually responding to it as we speak, I think. And there's also the reality of the voting process, the difficulties in the voter transmission, receipts not being read correctly. These have all been part of the social conversation, and we'll try to uncover them later.
Yes, anything you'd like to add, Weldon?
Not too much, other than the fact that while we do track a lot of this conversation online, I think it's important to understand that, again, we're not here to show you the outright outcomes. It's publicly what people are saying, right? So there is still a big silent majority of people who aren't willing to share what they say online. Just like myself, I'm probably considered a lurker. I won't go on to social media and start chatting away, right? So it's important to understand that, but it does help us understand what kind of narratives are being driven on social media.
So you did say it's not going to be showing us the influence on the outcomes. Am I understanding this correctly?
It might show some influence in the
Okay.
sense of what people are driving as stories and narratives and conversations online. But again, not everyone, about 90% of us aren't willing to share what we feel actually on social media. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it may not show outcomes, it just shows popularity-wise in terms of what people are
Talkability.
talking about, talkability. That's what we're grabbing on social media.
Are there any discoveries that you, Weldon, and Jovic would like to share with us, as we don't have the data right here just yet?
For now, I think something interesting that our viewers can take note of. We know that the Philippines is one of the top nations in terms of Facebook penetration and Facebook usage. That study is actually also based on Meltwater study. But in these elections, by the hour, starting 4 a.m., 5 a.m., the platform which has the most mention is actually X, formerly called Twitter.
Twitter.
Because it's it's very fast-paced. The velocity is quite, when you post something about a certain candidate, it gets posted, it gets reposted, retweeted quite fast. So the spread is pretty fast. So we'll see how it balances out.
Actually, Chiki, I think we used Meltwater in the 2022 elections as well, I recall.
Okay.
And just to put it into context, of course, it's important because, as you pointed out, the Philippines is the social media capital of the world. But I just had a quick question, if that's okay. And does your system have a way of distinguishing between the real accounts and the fake accounts? And what kind of patterns do you see around the narratives that are floating around? Do you see similarities in terms of tone, in terms of the stories that they're trying to push, in terms of the candidates that you're trying to push? What are you seeing in that space?
Yeah. So just to answer the question, we do help identify certain misinformation, disinformation, or campaigns that happen online, right? Fundamentally, whether or not we're doing it actively right now, I don't think that's happening right now. But we are trying to keep an eye on any bad actors or misinformation or disinformation that is being spread. So we do pick up on that. There are ways that we can distinguish whether they are real being spread or they're actually troll farms or fake accounts, right? In terms of the insights that we've picked up on, I think you've seen a lot of stories come up around some of the hot topics that have happened today already,
Yes.
such as the Comelec as well as the vote buying, right?
And what's the trend looking like? Is there more disinformation this time around or less? Has it mostly stayed the same compared to previous elections? What are you noticing?
I think with regards to that, we'll probably need to do a post-mortem to
Okay.
do a more thorough analysis on that. I think while we're
We'll
in the
circle
action,
back to it. Okay.
exactly,
Yeah.
we're right in the thick of it, and it's probably a little bit premature for me to say outright what that looks like at the moment.
Fair enough.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. From Meltwater, again, Weldon and Jovic. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go back to our transmittal board over here. Take a look at the national transmission progress. Still none at this point. Again, 7:34 in the evening, around 34 minutes after the precincts closed. Still no election data transmitted. None in national, definitely none in the local areas as well. Okay.
Comelec Chairman George Garcia did say that these new ACMs will only be transmitting the results of the votes at 7 p.m. exactly, not before, also not later. But so yeah, we can expect the first results supposedly around 8:30 onwards. It should be quite faster than the previous Smartmatic machines because this time the results will be sent directly to stakeholders in the Comelec server rather than passing through the centralized transparency server. But as of 7:35 in the evening, no results yet have been transmitted, basing it on the data that Chiki presented.
I'm trying to see if there's some trickling in online, but so far I'm not picking up on anything either. I don't know if may aberya on the ground or they're waiting on something.
Okay, so this is this
we're-
is the
we're seeing-
website.
Okay, now
May
we're
local
seeing
and
on the
overseas.
website.
Local
That they're-
ERs and overseas ERs. So.
All right, so we might want to zoom in a little bit on the
Mahirap
text
ba
right
siya?
here.
Yeah, sorry, medyo malayo lang, so it's hard for us to read.
Ayun, ayun.
Okay, there we go.
Sa local ERs,
Okay, for the local ERs, ERs expected was around 93,000. So 10,030 have been received.
Okay.
So again, there's 93,000. So ERs not received will be about 83,357. That's for the local ERs. For the overseas ERs, we are expecting 242 in total. We have received only 2 and not received 240 of them.
So that's as of 7:15 in the evening. We'll keep refreshing this website to update you on the election returns being received. But again, votes are expected to come around 8:30 p.m. So for now, we will be awaiting those results.
93,387 ERs to be precise expected. We also have just a bit of breaking news that Manny Mogato, who just left our set, shared. There was a foiled assassination attempt to assassinate Abra Vice Governor and re-electionist Joy Bernos in Pidigan, Abra. Ito na nga yung sinasabi ni Manny kanina na in general, it feels like this election seemed to be a bit more quiet, more peaceful compared to previous elections. Usually may incidents sa Abra, sa Masbate, and nako baka pinansin kasi namin, but now we're getting news that there's been a foiled assassination attempt in Abra.
Mabuti na lang, nag-fail.
Oo, mabuti na lang.
But speaking of failing, kanina, no, si Comelec Chairman George Garcia actually said, actually reiterated there's no failure of elections because failure of elections means these things are not functional. For example, yung mga gamit, hindi dumating.
Hindi na-deliver.
Oo, yung mga teacher, hindi pumunta doon sa mga presinto. And the precinct basically didn't function. No? Walang nakaboto, no? Pero right now, no failure of elections. Ang example nga niya kanina, no, guys, was out of 10, kung 10 voters yun, kung merong violence at isa yung nakaboto, yan pwedeng failure of elections. Pero kung tinatamad lang yung 9 sa kanila, sorry, it was not 10 pala, 100. Yung 99 sa kanila, kung tinatamad lang at isa yung nakaboto, hindi yun failure of elections. Kasi gumagana yung sistema.
The system works.
Yes. So failure of elections only happens kapag may violence. That's one example.
All right, now let's go back to our discussion with Professor Guido David of Octa Research Group and Dr. Jan Robert Go, Associate Professor of Political Science at UP Diliman and President of the Philippine Political Science Association. All right, gentlemen, earlier we were already talking about election issues, the power of endorsements. I wanted to shift our discussion this time to party lists. So you have 63 party list seats up for grabs in this midterm elections, over 100 party lists vying. Would you say that the party list system right now is doing what it's supposed to do, representing the marginalized sector? Start with Professor.
Well, the short answer there is no. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. Because as what we can see right now, our political elites, definitely the dynasties, have captured the system. And we now have party lists which are backed and run by political dynasties. So, and they are seeing that their districts, no, as the base of their new party list. So it's like there's one member of the dynasty running for the district and another member of the dynasty running with the party list. So if the intent is to represent the marginalized, definitely your political dynasties, the elites, are not the marginalized sectors here.
Professor Guido, I don't know if this came up in your surveys, but when you ask around, no, dun sa mga voters, no, so sinong iboboto nyo dun sa party list? Anong party list iboboto nyo? Sinasabi nila, well, we don't really know the party list. So mukhang hulaan lang. How do people vote pagdating sa party list?
Well, at least in our survey, those who garnered a fair number of votes were actually the party lists that are more recognizable. So we have Tingog,
Recognizable because of the artistas who front the party list?
well,
Yun ba ang ano?
I mean, possibly because they
Puro
have,
artista kasi eh. Diba?
yeah, they have celebrity
Celebrities.
endorsers. Although our own survey shows that celebrity endorsers have something like a 19% positive effect, but a 38% negative effect. So they have more negative effect than positive, but they have some positive effect naman. But yeah, maybe it works for some artistas who help pull up these party lists. But these are recognizable in terms of awareness. So it's like marketing a product. They have more visibility. People hear about them. And there are party lists such as 4Ps and Tupad that resonate with the public because they are actually programs that are used by the government, but then they're used as names for party lists. So I mean, I'm just giving some examples. Of course, you have something else like Duterte Youth Party List, figured number 5 in our survey for the party list. But the party list survey is a little more tricky compared to a senatorial survey where the numbers are more or less well defined. But for party lists, because they're getting only 2%, 3% of the vote, with a margin of error of 3%, the variability there is fairly high. So we can only capture siguro the top 10 party lists, but the rest is really up for grabs.
Si Professor Guido is too polite to say it, but ako lang magsasabi. But the thing is, with Contradaya already said it, they put out a report saying that the vast majority of the top party lists are connected to political dynasties then and to big business. So may machinery na behind them. If you take a look at the number in the last surveys, no, even as far back as earlier this year, hindi masyado nagbabago yung top 5 party lists.
Right.
That's ACT-CIS, that's Duterte Youth, that's 4Ps, that's FPJ, Panday. And again, these all have current political connections already, which brings us back to Chiki's question. Paano bumoboto yung mga tao when it comes to party lists, right?
Because you can only vote for one.
There's got to be some form of association there that they're aware of. Now, okay, FPJ belongs to the Post, for instance, which is being run by Senator Poe's son, si Brian Lamanzares, right?
Well, we know that, but the reality is the common person. I mean, they're doing a lot of things. They're working jobs, maybe working 2 jobs. They don't have enough time to sift through the list of 150 party lists. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of them, they might have done some research about their senatorial or their local, their priorities, their local candidates, because that will directly affect them. And then maybe next priority will be the senatorial and then national candidates. So the party list vote is not as high in their priority, and they will end up usually voting for something that will just resonate with them when they see it, or something that clicks in their memory. Oh, this is familiar. And I've talked to some people on the ground. When they choose their party list, they just choose, okay, this looks like a good party list. They don't know who's behind these names. And I actually told them, oh, don't you know who's behind that? If I knew that, I might not have voted for this party list. So again, it goes back to a lot of voter education, spreading or disseminating information, because a lot of the public, they're voting based on preconceived notions and their impressions, and they might not actually be, reality.
It seems marami din sa kanila, no, they vote, sinasabi niyo nga, no, Professor Guido, na parang first look, tapos whatever resonates
Yes.
with them. Does it also matters, no? Yung nandun ka sa pinakauna, right? Like, kaya they put AAA.
Yeah, everybody's
Di ba ganon?
starting with A
Oo,
or
mga
number
ganon. So, may
one.
Papalitan na ng COMELEC yung rules daw next time. Kaya hindi na pwedeng ganon na
Yeah, or they should just randomize, not
not
yes.
alphabetically.
Right.
Right.
Because there's workarounds to that. There's workarounds. But, you know, what the other analysts have told us is that the system hasn't really catered to the marginalized groups, right? Case in point, yung Supreme Court decision,
Right.
striking down the idea that party list system should only be for the marginalized,
Right.
right? So that hasn't helped. That's become that in
did not
fact has
help.
enabled.
That even opened the doors
Yes.
for these politicians to create new
Correct.
party lists, no, which have represented a very, very minute sector, if at all it represent any sector. Because in my class, no, for example, I have a Philippine politics class this semester, and we went over this party list and look at what are the names, who are these people, and then we are just amazed that there are party lists which do not even make sense to us. And we found out they won already 3 terms. So if this can happen, then what does it say about the party list system that we have? The Supreme Court decision opened the gates for the elites to once again reclaim, which should have been for the ordinary people. So maybe it's about time to revisit.
It needs to be reformed, you
Yeah.
think?
It
The whole system?
needs to be reformed. We need probably a new law that would supersede the Supreme Court decision. But if you have now 63 out of the 63 party lists, no, maybe majority of them are part of this questionable party list, then we're just facing the same question we're facing with political dynasties. We'll never have a law.
The party list system is obviously a very big problem, no? Kasi hindi nga natin alam lahat ng personally, I don't even know all of the party lists kung ano yung mga plataforma nito, ano yung mga pinupush nito. How would you gentlemen propose or how would you gentlemen I guess remedy the situation, no? Kung paano tayo boboto sa party list, meron ba kayong suggestions? Kasi ang dami nila.
Paano masasala yung mga
Oo,
legit
how do
na
we
nagre-represent
get to know-
ng isang
Oh,
isang
all of
sector,
them, di
oo.
ba? Para makaboto tayo ng maayos and not just ticking whatever, first pops up into our mind. Pag parang name recall siya o may AAA, so una mo siyang nakita.
Okay, before Professor Go answers that question, we just have to make way for this. In Mindanao, Makabayan senatorial candidate Amira Lidasan was unable to cast her vote after discovering that her name was missing from the official voters list at her designated polling precinct in Maguindanao. And in light of the recent voting issues, we now speak with senatorial candidate Amira Lidasan. Good evening, ma'am. Can you hear us
Hello,
okay?
assalamualaikum. Good evening po sa inyo.
Okay, ma'am, pakikwento naman po sa amin, bakit hindi po wala po sa listahan ang iyong pangalan?
Hindi ko rin alam kasi kung bakit wala. But was able to vote in 2022. I transferred from Cotabato City to Matanog, Maguindanao. And in 2022 nga, I was running for Bayan na party list as the third nominee. So I was able to cast my vote sa noong 2022. Pero kanina, I was there in Matanog Elementary School, 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. I was already queuing at the my precinct, no, kung saan bumoto ko last 2022. And wala yung name ko doon. But because I saw the list, no, parang may sinade sila doon na isang pangalan. So I was thinking na baka ako ito, pwede ko pang maitanong sa COMELEC, no, kung nandoon ang pangalan ko. Pero 4 hours after ng queuing at saka pagpipila, hindi nga ako nakaboto sa Matanog. And I asked what the COMELEC PIs, no, ano ang pwede kong gawin to remedy the situation and paano ang mangyayari. syempre siguro busy masyado ang mga BEI natin. So, hindi nila masagot ang tanong na yon. But there were some poll watchers who told me that several of the voters, not only that precinct but in Matanog, ay nawawala, na-delete sila. So parang ang iniisip na lang nila is if you could try, ang naging nila sa atin is if you could try looking for it sa previous na mga precinct mo, then you might able to vote there. So I found my name sa last na binotohan ko, 2007 pa, in Cotabato City. So I was able to vote mga 5 p.m. na. Because I had to run from long ride, from Matanog to Cotabato City to catch the polling precinct bago magsara. So alhamdulillah, I was able to vote, but there are many of my kababayan, relatives in Matanog, told me na talagang it was very difficult for them to vote kasi nga na-delete. So siguro ma-explain lang ng COMELEC what happened kasi in 2022 talagang I have a certificate voters registration which sinubmit ko sa COMELEC nung ako ay tumakbo for COC sa pagtakbo ko as third nominee ng Bayan Muna. And that also we used ditong 2024 na filing din ng COC. So ganun ako ka-confident na I can vote in Matanog kasi mayroon akong registration at voted before. Pero kanina talagang nahirapan, naghirap talaga kami hanapin yung aking presinto. Yun. At finally, sa Cotabato City before mag-close ang polling precinct ay nakaboto na rin ako, alhamdulillah.
Well, as sinabi mo nga, Mama, you are one of many voters na hindi nga nakita yung kanilang pangalan sa voters list at nagkaaberya pa. But the important thing is ay nakaboto po kayo. So thank you for sharing your experience with us. That was senatorial candidate Amira Lidasan. Maraming salamat po. All right, so now going back to our discussion with the gentleman, Chiki earlier was asking Professor Go about how we can better educate voters about the party list, choosing their respective party lists instead of just, di ba, yung pag nakita mo na nga yung pangalan sa balota, parang mamimili ka na lang kung anong, which one you can relate to. But so how can we improve that behavior, that voting pattern moving forward? Professor Go.
It's kind of difficult because you have basically allowed anyone to put up a party list. And it's very easy. It's as if one day you think of putting up a party list and then come election season, you will have it. But there are safeguards that were placed. For example, if you do not win for 2 consecutive elections, you'll be out of the list. There are those safeguards. But it's really a challenge for the voter to sift through 150 plus party lists. And I think the challenge here is to be more, at least on the side of the COMELEC, to screen properly all the party lists to make sure that they are within the boundaries of what is the intent of the party list law. Of course, this can be subjected to cases later on, but yeah, that's very important. At the same time, we must intensify the voter awareness campaign for party lists, so that people will know what is the value of voting for party lists. Anecdotally, when I voted earlier, the person before me doesn't have a party list chosen in their ballot. So they were notified by the BEI and said that, oh, wala po kayong party list na na-shade. So he had to go back. But he was scratching his head because he doesn't know which to choose from that long list of party lists. And that is basically something that the point where we can start.
Exactly, Professor, because these 63 seats do make up 20% of the total membership of the House.
Okay, let's check in now with COMELEC. We've got on the line Attorney Rex Laudianco, COMELEC spokesperson. Attorney Laudianco, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Magandang gabi po, Ma'am Regina, Ma'am Sean, and Sir Jay. Good evening po.
Magandang gabi, sir. I'll get right to the point. Wala pa po kaming election results. It's 7:54 on the clock right now. I thought we were supposed to get the first few numbers by 7 or shortly after
Yes,
7
ma'am. I
o'clock.
was able to show to the media here at the National Technical Support Center that the election results website is already active and has been receiving, in fact, the election return. As of now, we have already received 32,108 election returns. Just go to 2025 electionresults.comelec.gov.ph and kindly refresh it every 5 or 10 minutes.
2025 election results. Sa data po namin, hindi pa siya, it's not coming up and we're not sure why.
It's live right now. We're witnessing it, ma'am. We're witnessing it. Your representative here.
Yeah.
We're seeing it right here.
Okay.
So, Attorney Rex, how fast can we expect this transmission to be? Kasi right now, we have 32,000 out of 93,000 nga sa local ERs.
That's correct. That's correct po. So as expected, tuloy-tuloy naman po yung pagdating natin. Meron lang po ito kasi we have to remember na kailangan muna po mag-print ng 9 sets of national election returns, another 9 sets of local election returns, and the electoral boards have to stop. Why? Ang utos po ng Commission on Elections, accomplish that. Kailangan po pirmahan ng electoral boards at pirmahan ng mga watchers. Ang second step, i-distribute na ito sa mga watchers present. Tandaan po natin siya, lalong-lalo na sa majority party, minority party, the PPCRB, and the NAMFREL copy. Ang susunod po nun, kailangan nilang i-post ang 9th copy sa labas po ng presinto para lahat ng dadaan makita na po yan. Then and only then can they proceed to the transmission part kung saan po ikakabit pa lamang nila ang transmission dongle o kaya po yung ating cable papunta dun sa Starlink. Tsaka pa lang po sila papahintulutan ng sistema na makapag-transmit. And as we can see po sa board, ang pag-transmit naman po ay 32,108 na po na mga clustered precinct.
Are we still on track to get the bulk of the results by 8:30, between 8:30 to 10 p.m. tonight? Kahit na may mga precincts na mag-extend ng polling hours?
That's correct po. No? So meron, hindi naman po kami nagbigay ng deadline. What we had stated was that yung pong mga maliliit na mga bayan, we expect them to finish their canvassing perhaps by midnight tonight or a little bit early morning by tomorrow po. Yung pong mga syudad ay ina-expect namin na baka umaga, bukas. Yung mga highly urbanized cities and provinces, baka po hanggang bukas ng gabi. Yan naman din po yung ina-expect namin timeline. But then again, what we see at the board, din po sa 2025 election results, are partial and unofficial and direct transmission po mula sa ating mga automated counting machines. And by the way, lahat po ng natatransmit na yan, pag yan po ay na-click nyo, it can be pulled down. The data of the results po, kada presinto, kada ACM ay makikita nyo. All candidates po yan.
So partial and unofficial by between 8:30 to 10 p.m. tonight. Tapos of course, yung official within the next day. After
We
the
didn't
board
give
of...
a 10 p.m. deadline po to ourselves. Basta ang sinasabi po namin, tuloy-tuloy ang reception. Meron din po kasi mga na-delay. Tandaan po natin, lalong-lalo na dun sa data audience in Suwat, wherein the regional election director had already requested for an extension of voting hours. We're awaiting the decision of the Commission and Bank kung magagrant po ang request na ito.
Sir, may indication na po ba tayo ano yung voter turnout this year? What are the numbers?
Wala pa po. Wala pa po sa ngayon, ma'am. Kailangan masasabi po namin yan kapag na-receive na po namin yung ating mga, katulad po nito, mga election returns, kung saan nakalagay din naman po yung actual voters who actually voted. Yun po yung basis natin to compute the voter turnout.
Okay. Maraming salamat, Attorney Rex Laudianco, spokesperson ng COMELEC, for talking to us. Thank you, sir.
Maraming salamat po. Thank you po.
Okay, we are still waiting for our data to load, but we will continue our coverage of the 2025 midterm elections. As Attorney Rex Laudianco said, yung partial and unofficial, the bulk of the results will still come in at 8:30, between 8:30 to 10 p.m. tonight, kahit na may mga precincts na mag-extend ng polling hours. So stay with us. I'm Regina Lay.
They will be bringing you more results, so do stay tuned. I'm Jay Tarong.
This has been a special coverage on Bilang Pilipino 2025. I'm Pauline Berzosa.
And I'm Chicky Verhel. We are still One News, all sides, all the time.
Go! si Stabot.
Ang alam namin na magsaserve yung pulis. Bigla lang nag-change. Ang sabi, ang magsaserve daw is guro. Itong mga guro na to, guro-guruan na, hindi mga totoong guro yan.
Mahaba kasi pila dun, iba talaga kasi dun eh. Tsaka mainit. Taka lang po kami, wala palang machine dito, hindi mo pala makikita yung ipapasok yung papel namin.
Bilang Pilipino.
Good evening. This is the continuing coverage of Bilang Pilipino 2025. I'm Regionalism.
We are bringing you the latest stories and results from the ground, so do stay tuned here for the next 3 hours. I'm Sean Yao.
And I'm Ces Orenia Drilon. It's been an hour since voting precincts closed. And now, the wait begins. We hope not too long. Ang resulta ng eleksyon ay unti-unti na pong pumapasok, kaya babantayan natin yan. And we also have our data presenter, Ed Lingao, who will be bringing in COMELEC spokesperson Attorney Rex Laudianco. Kasama nating magbabantay sa mga resulta, mobile journalists and News 5 correspondents. Let's have first COMELEC spokesperson Attorney Rex Laudianco.
We were just talking to him, medyo naputol lang kanina.
Ay,
But
ganon.
he's saying na may, on the official website for COMELEC, pumapasok naman yung result. The electoral
Kalahati
returns.
na.
Kalahati na tayo.
Okay. You're looking at 46,688 ERs received.
Tama po.
Election
Tama
returns.
po.
And 46,000 kalahati bale, 699 not yet received. Basically 50% more or less.
Attorney, magandang gabi sa
ma'am.
inyo. Ayan.
Magandang gabi po muli. Kanina po ay nasa 32,000 lang tayo, tumalon sa 36,000, and just a few minutes, nasa 46,000 na po tayo. So inaasahan din po